Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. You haven't seen me for a day or so, and we're coming down to the last days of the blog before it's time for me to go away. Maybe I'll be back, maybe not. We'll talk about that next week. But what we are talking about and still talking about is I'm ending my series on boundaries. And I told you before, I wanted to talk about what happens, when you decide to get some boundaries, when you decide to do this for yourself. And it's been a really wonderful series, and I'm really sad it's going to end. I have other boundary books because they have other boundary books. They have boundaries for dating, they also have boundaries for marriage, and they have boundaries for your kids and boundaries for your teens and stuff. And I'm going to be reading Boundaries for Marriage. I've never read that before. Actually, this book I've read before, but I've never read Boundaries for Marriage and stuff. And so after reading this again and then looking on my bookshelf and seeing I had two copies of Boundaries for Marriage, I don't know why I haven't read it, but I had two copies of Boundaries for Marriage. I decided, okay, yeah, it's time for me to read. Maybe this is a sign. It's time for me to read Boundaries for Marriage. But before I go into reading Boundaries for Marriage, and also before I go, I'm going to tell you guys I may be back to do another series about a book that I'll be reading regarding vulnerability because, I just don't want you guys, I'm telling you how to have healthy boundaries, but, I just don't want you guys to have boundaries and not be vulnerable. You need both of those things. You don't just need one, you need both. And, to have a really good, healthy relationship and stuff. So, I'm going to be reading a book about vulnerability, and I'll probably come back and do a series about that. And this series I'll try to put into one blog so you can just kind of click on links and go to the parts that you want to see. Maybe there are parts that you missed or that you didn't see. I'll also do that for my emotional abuse series that I did and stuff, and two series that I'm really proud of that I did, this one and the one about emotional abuse. And, kind of you can look at those and figure out what you want to see. But today we're going to talk about we're still in internal resistance. So your resistance to boundaries. And, we talked about other people resisting your boundaries, but we're going to talk about you resisting your boundaries because it happens. Today, we're going to be talking about guilt, and we're going to be talking about guilt and oh, actually, I'm sorry. We're going to be talking about unforgiveness and external focus, and then we're going to be talking about guilt and abandonment. But that's going to be a separate blog, and I'm going to do them both today, because I don't have much time. And then I have a last blog to talk to you about some steps that will probably happen as you get ready to set up boundaries. What will happen? Kind of measurable steps and stuff for you to look for and stuff. And as I said, if you don't have the book, get the book. It's even better because there are things in this book I didn't talk about and stuff. And so there'll be good things for you to delve into, and it'll be more personal for you. It'll speak to you and whatever your needs are regarding boundaries and stuff. It spoke to me and my own needs, and what it is that I needed to know, and some things that maybe I could do better about my boundaries, and things like that. So I suggest that you buy the book. It's by Dr. Henry M. Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. I'm giving them a lot of love, but this book is so awesome. Unforgiveness. And that is certainly one of our own internal resistances to boundaries. It's an internal resistance to a lot of stuff. And we're going to talk about unforgiveness. To err is human, to forgive is divine, and to not forgive is the most stupid thing we can do. Forgiveness is hard, and I'm not going to tell you that it's not. It is hard. It is very difficult to do. Um, One of the things that I try to do is pray about forgiveness and ask God to soften my own heart. I mean, I really do have to, because, if it was just me on my own trying to forgive people, yeah, that would not work out. Um, It means letting go of something that someone owes you. Forgiveness is freedom from the past. It is freedom from the abusive person who hurt you. And I know many people are like, "What? That's not. I don't want to forgive them. I don't want to." But you have to remember that if you don't forgive people, you're still in bondage to them. You're still attached to them. You're still attached to what they did to you. You can't move on. You can't let go. I see so many people, and particularly many black women, who are stuck in spots in their lives that they've been stuck in for like years, you know, and they're always wondering why they can't move forward. And then I hear something that lets me know why maybe it may be hard for them to move forward. Something has happened in the past, and stuff, and they can't let it go. They can't forgive the person. And you can't move into what is your best life when you're still hanging on to this person and what they did to you. If I had not forgiven my ex husband, how could I have ever moved on to find someone better and have a better life? I'm just wondering. I'm really wondering. If I had kept all the animosity that I had towards him after we had broken up and getting a divorce and all the stuff he had done, and thinking about all the stuff he had done to me during that marriage that I, discovered and kind of, came to me and stuff at the end of it. If I had held on to all of that and not forgiven him, then how could I have moved on to someone else? Forgiveness, and I don't care what anybody says, forgiveness creates, unforgiveness creates benefits, bitterness, excuse me. Bitterness. Unforgiveness creates bitterness. Forgiveness creates benefits. And you need to remember that. The Bible compares forgiving people to releasing them from a legal debt. When a debt is incurred, when people trespass on your personal property, real owing occurs. You have the books of your soul, an accounting of who owes you what. Your mother controlled you, and she owes you to make it right. Your father dominated you, and he owes you to make it right. If you are under the law, you are motivated to collect these debts from them. Attempts at collection may take many forms. You may try to please them to help them pay you back. You think that if you do a little something more, they will pay their bill and give you the love they owe. Or you may think that if you confront them enough, they will see their wrong and make it right. Or you may feel that if you convince enough people of how bad you've had it and how bad your parents were, that somehow that'll clear the account. Or you could take it out on someone else, repeating the sin that they did to you on someone else or on them to even the score. Or you could continue to try and convince them how bad they are. You think that if they just understood, they would make it better. They would pay you what they owe. I'm going to tell you a story about something that happened after my divorce. And I was in the owing mood. I figured he owed me a lot for all I had gone through and stuff. And there was at some point, I thought to myself, you know what? He really doesn't think he did anything wrong. He doesn't think he was wrong. And so a lot of this about people owing you stuff and you trying to convince people or let people know what they owe you, as if or telling them how bad they are, as if, the truth is most people don't think they're bad people. um, they don't think anything about what they've done. It works. It's worked for them. It's been working and stuff, and at some point if it stops working, they'll do something else. But for most people who do really bad, harmful things to people, it just works. It just works for them and stuff. And they've convinced themselves that they're not wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. So you know what? Your likelihood of convincing them that they did is really low. And when I figured out, you know what, he thinks he's did what what was he thinks he really was a really great husband. That's what he thought. He thought he was a really awesome husband. He really did. He told other people that, oh, I'm such a good husband. I mean, even other people like, really? But he was convinced he was. So, what was I going to do? I don't want to have to deal with him. I don't want to have to drag him along. So I let it go. I forgave him because there was no way for me to get back what he owed me. Now, let's talk about forgiveness a little bit more. Because as I said before, many people don't understand actually what forgiveness is. So we're going to talk about that. Nothing is wrong with wanting things to be resolved. The problem is that things will get resolved in only one way, with grace and forgiveness. Sorry. That's how it has to happen. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth does not work. The wrong can never be undone, but it can be forgiven and thereby rendered powerless. To forgive means to write it off, to let it go, or to tear up the account. It means to render the account cancel. To forgive means we will never get that person, we will never get from that person what was owed to us. And you have to know that. And that is what we do not like, because that involves grieving for what will never be. The past will never be different. For some, this means grieving the childhood that never was. For others, it means other things. But to hang on to the demand is to stay in unforgiveness. And that is the most destructive thing we can do to ourselves. Now, here's the big warning. Forgiveness and opening up to more abuse are not the same thing. Please, I'll repeat it. Forgiveness and opening up to abuse are not the same thing. Forgiveness has to do with the past. Reconciliation and boundaries have to do with the future. Limits guard my property until someone has repented and can be trusted to visit again. So if I forgive you, I have to set some boundaries with you before I let you back on my property. I can't really trust that you're going to do right. And as I said in the last blog, unless you reconcile, unless you've actually said, you know what, I did a wrong thing, and I sincerely apologize for what I've done, and I don't want to do that again. I don't want to hurt you like that again. And then behavior starts to change. Then that's when we get reconciliation. Until then, you're not allowed on my property. I can't trust you to do what it is that you're supposed to do regarding me. Those boundaries are mine. That involves me. It's not my job to make sure you're okay. Now this is what we remember. So, and if they sin, I will forgive again. 70 times 7. So I know many people think, oh, when they hear that, like, oh, you forgive people forever. But the thing is, you forgive people every time they do something, but that don't mean you reconcile with them. But I want to be around people who honestly fail me, not dishonestly deny that they hurt me and have no intent to do better. So remember that. There's many times that people make honest mistakes and do stuff that they honestly didn't mean to do. And then there are other times when people have repeated patterns of abuse and abuse you repeatedly. Those are not honest mistakes. Those are people doing things purposefully. You have to figure out what is actually a mistake and what people do purposefully, maliciously. Because there's some stuff that people do maliciously. If somebody has an honest mistake and they ask, and usually when people make an honest mistake, they just ask for forgiveness. It's not really hard. You haven't done anything. You're not doing this on purpose. So you can honestly say, I'm really sorry. I'll never do that again. And stuff. And then you just kind of move on. But then there are people, people with a pattern. That's what I'm talking about. Remember I talk about emotional abuse. People with a pattern. People with patterns. They have to acknowledge how they hurt people, and they have to intend to do better. But if they don't, then you remember, you have boundaries. You don't have to let them in. If people are owning their sin, they are learning through failure. We can ride that out. They want to do better, and forgiveness will help. But if someone is in denial or only giving lip service to doing better without trying to make changes or seeking help, I need to keep my boundaries, even though I've forgiven them. Forgiveness gives me boundaries because it unhooks me from the hurtful person, and then I can act responsibly and wisely. If I am not forgiving them, I am still in a destructive relationship with them. Let it and go and get what you need from God and people who can give it. Many times we stay in these destructive relationships with people trying to get what we owe instead of letting them go and forgiving them and moving on to a better life. Does that sound like you? Are you hanging on to people, hanging on to a parent, hanging on to a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, hanging on to a friend because, you want to get what they owe you? Let them go. Move on to better people, to a better life. That is a better life. Unforgiveness destroys boundaries. Forgiveness creates them, for it gets bad debt off of your property. Remember one last thing. Forgiveness is not denial. You must name the sin against you to forgive it. God did not deny what we did to him. He worked through it. He named it. He expressed his feelings about it. He cried and was angry, and then he let it go. And he did this in the context of a relationship with other people. So you have to remember that also. Is that no, you can't deny it. You can't act like it didn't happen. You can name it. You can say what it was, and you can be angry about it. Now remember, you can't stay angry about it. You have to let it go. You have to grieve it and let it go. And then move on to a better life. But many people, that's what bitterness is. It's people still in anger. They won't let it go. That is a sign of immaturity. You have to let it go to move on to the better life. We're going to talk about external focus, which is really it's short. People tend to look outside of themselves for the problem. This external perspective keeps you a victim. It says you can never be okay until someone else changes. And that's going to keep you stuck forever. I don't really care whether so and so changes. I could care less whether another person, figures out that has nothing to do with me. Remember, we're not attached. We're not the same people. So I can have boundaries and you could do whatever you want to do, but like I say, you're going to do it over there. You're not going to do it here and stuff. So I don't need people to change what they do. I don't have to continue to have a relationship with people once I figure out that they're boundaryless people or that they're controllers. They're controllers or things like that. I don't have to have a relationship. The relationship is done. It's over. It's, usually gone. They'll feel consequences. Family members will feel consequences. But like I say, I don't have them kind of problems with my family. Family members will feel consequences. But random people will be gone. I've had people do this before and people wonder, oh, yeah, I'm not, I have no problem letting go. I'm not even that sort of person. My mom said that the other day. She's like, really, I have no issue letting go. None at all. I really am always happy that I don't have an issue letting go. Yes, I may be sad about letting go. And yes, I may be hurt about letting go. But I really have no problem letting go of things that are not good for me and destructive to me and stuff. Once I figure out, oh yeah, this is not going to work out, then it's done. The essence, remember, okay, it says that you can never be okay unless somebody else changes. This is the essence of powerless blame. It may make you morally superior to that person in your own thinking, but never really in reality. But it'll never fix the problem. Face squarely the resistance to looking at yourself as the one who to looking at yourself as the one who has to change. You're the one who has to change. It is crucial that you face yourself, for that is the beginning of boundaries. Responsibility begins with an internal focus of confession and repentance. You must confess the truth about the ways you are keeping your boundarylessness going. Remember that. And remember what I've said before. The boundary thing, it's on you. It's not on the other person. The other person is not making you do anything. The reason that this keeps happening to you with so and so is because you have no boundaries. Not it doesn't have anything to do with them. It's all on you. And once you get boundaries, you wouldn't even have that issue with so and so. But as long as you have no boundaries, you'll have that issue. You must look at yourself and face the internal resistance of wanting the problem to be on the outside of you. And I know many people like that. Oh, why don't so and so change? Oh, why don't people act this way? Why would people act like that? It don't matter why people act like that. That's just what people do. It don't matter how people act crazy or do crazy stuff to you. That's what people do. It's just who some people are. The point is, you need some boundaries. And usually when people say that, there are people that really don't want to have boundaries. They want everybody else to change so they don't have to do nothing, so they don't have to take any action. I'm sorry. When it comes to boundaries, you're the first actor in that. You're the first person that has to do anything. And you know what? Once you make some boundaries, you won't have any more issues with people. Once people do stuff to you and you make people face consequences for doing what they did, or you let people know how you feel about that or how that's not okay with you and stuff, you won't have no problems. You won't have no issues. And you just keep doing that, even if they keep doing that, and then after a while you're like, you know what, I gotta cut you off. You don't have them kind of issues. I don't have no issues wondering why people act the way they act. Once you get the clowning too much with me, I'm like, oh well, you're gone. Bye. You know, I'm not trying to wonder why people doing what they do. I don't care. You know, you have a pattern of really acting stupid or dumb or doing dumb stuff. Yeah, no, bye. It's no need, So, and that's how, that works. Okay, next we're going to talk about guilt and abandonment and wrap up internal resistance in a few minutes. All right, talk to you then. Bye-bye.